Hi, this is Jen, and thanks for joining me. Today I'm participating in a Hearts and Flowers video hop, and it starts today, February 14th, and it will run through Thursday, February 20th. And it's just Hearts and Flowers themed to bring us into spring. There are lots of other ladies on the hop, so please go ahead and check out their channels. Some channels have giveaways, so go ahead and check those out. I am doing a trio of cards today using this We Are Memory Keepers Paige Evans die. I've gone ahead and I've already cut out several dies just using white cardstock, and I'm going to glue two of the dies together and create a stencil. And the reason I am using two of the dies is just to give the stencil more dimension than it would have if I had just used a single piece of paper. What I'm using for dimension in this card is Liquitex modeling paste, and I've already gone ahead and I've just set my stencil, my paper stencil, down onto my card base, which is actually a piece of Arteza watercolor paper, and I'm going to be watercoloring, so I wanted a little bit heavier paper. And I'm just using my craft knife to spread the paste. I'm not spreading it smooth. I am leaving a lot of texture in there, and you'll be able to see why when I show the still shots later on. It just leaves this really cool texture, kind of ridges almost. It makes it kind of look like marble in the end. And I'm going to go ahead and take my heat tool and dry this. You don't have to do this. You can let it air dry. I wanted to dry it partly to get it dry and partly because if you can see there are air bubbles from the heat, and I wanted that extra texture on the heart, and so that's why I did that. And then I'm going to go ahead and use my embossing bag and my VERSAMARK ink, and I'm just kind of randomly putting that on to the dried modeling paste. And then I'm taking some Ranger Gold embossing powder and spreading that onto the VERSAMARK ink. And so it's going to stick wherever that ink is. And I'm just wiping off the areas where I don't want the gold. I just wanted it to be a few areas of gold on the heart, just enough so you can see it, but not totally covering it. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my flat paintbrush and spread that over the card panel. And then the watercolor that I'm using is COLORE, and it's Prussian blue. And so I just put a little bit off to the side on my palette paper. And I'm just going to swipe it across back and forth from the bottom of the card to the top. And then I will take my heat tool and dry that and then go back over it until I get a lot darker on the card panel. So originally I was going to do a full card panel, and when I finished, I didn't end up liking the dark color so much. So what I ended up doing was cutting the panel down a little bit smaller and then just using it on another card panel. But I'm going to go ahead and finish. I was not quite sure at this point where I was going to go with the card, and so I went ahead and completed the panel and dried it with my heat tool. And then once I got it dried, I went ahead and I took a baby wipe and kind of wiped up a little bit of those areas that were on the modeling paste just to lighten it up a bit. I think it gives it a really cool kind of mottled look with the texture of the paste and then the random areas of gold embossing powder. So what I do next is I just take another piece of cardstock and use the die again, and then I just took my glitter glue and I am putting glue down so that I could place this on top of my watercolor panel. And then I'll set some stamping blocks on that to get it to adhere very well. And then I'll take that other white die cut that you see right there and use glitter glue again, and then add that on top of the heart that's already there, just for a little bit of extra dimension. And so I'll go ahead and let that dry. And then I wanted to put a little bit of splatter, so I'm using the Gansai Tambi Starry colors. And the color I'm using is called Blue Gold. And so I've just spritzed that with my water bottle. And I'm just testing it right here. I always have to test it. I'm not brave enough to just splatter that on the card. So to splatter, sometimes I tap the brush with my finger. Sometimes I grab the bristles with my fingers and kind of pull them back. So like if you have a toothbrush, it's really good to create splatter. But if you just have a regular brush, you can go ahead and pull it back and it'll give a really nice splatter. I went ahead and added a gold embossed on black cardstock that just says I love you, along with a few sequins, and that will complete the first card. I didn't have great light when I was taking these pictures. The blue color is really actually very pretty in person. So for the second card, I am taking this Sugar Pea Designs stencil, and I don't have the name right off hand, but I will go ahead and put it in the description. Then I'm going to take my blending brush and Antique Linen Distress Oxide. This actually ends up being a little bit of almost like a green color, and that is because I must not have cleaned the stencil off when I made my swatch. So the blue color and the antique linen created almost like a really, really light green color. I love the stencil though. I think it's super pretty. And then I'm just going to take the die once again and run that through my die cut machine. And then I'm taking some acetate. I have already put down my tape roller and I am adhering a piece of acetate. So I'm making a shaker card. And then you can see in the left hand side I've created a window in my card base, and that's where I will be adhering this. So you'll be able to see through to the inside of the card. So I'm gone ahead and I put my foam tape in areas around the card. I did put it on some of those lines just so it wouldn't all fall to the bottom, and there I spilled on my beads. And then I filled up the open spaces with my shaker mixes and some beads and some sequins. And then I'm going to take another piece of acetate and adhere that. And then I will adhere the entire panel to my card base. And when you open the card, you will be able to see the back side. I did not think that totally through. So if I were to do it again, I would put the die on the inside as well so that it looked a little more polished. But I'm going to go ahead and adhere that to my card base where I have that heart cut out. And then I add a die cut sentiment for this. So there's a still shot of seeing through to the inside of the card. I added a die cut from Pink Fresh Studios and then a sentiment that just says hugs. And that completes the second card. For the next card, I'm going to emboss this entire piece of paper pretty much. So I'm going to use this Stampendous ink dauber. It has embossing ink in it. I love this dauber because it's really easy to get like an entire panel like this instead of using your ink pad, your embossing ink pad. And then I'm using Lindy's embossing powder. This is called Chrome Doesn't Pay, and it is not a flat embossing powder. It's a really chunky embossing powder, but it's super pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and spread that over my entire panel, and then I will heat set it. And this looks super cool when you put your heat gun on it and it starts to melt the powder. So I sped this up a lot. I just wanted to show how cool it looks going over the powder and melting all that. And so I'm only going to use the portion that is the heart. So I'm just going to use the heart outline for this. So I've taken my die and run it through my embossing machine again. And now I have a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock. I am using my Lindy's Magical Shakers. The first one I'm using is called Papa Pink. And I've sprayed a little bit of water on the panel and then shook the powder on. And then I'm sprayed it again, and I'm taking a paintbrush to spread that color out. And then I'll spray it once again and put a little bit more powder. And when I take the paintbrush, I'm partly spreading the ink and partly kind of breaking up the little granules of color that are there. But the great thing about the shakers, or any kind of, like, I mean, if you had the Nuvo, I mean, there's all kinds of shakers out there, is the variety of color. I just love that it expands into more than one color. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab another magical shaker color, and that's Alpine Ice Rose, I believe. Alpine Ice something. I'm just going to do the same thing, is spray it the panel with water, and then sprinkle that powder on, and then spray it once again and spread that powder out. And then I'll also take my heat tool to heat that up and dry it. And then I've also splattered a little bit of the ink around the card. And then once again, I will take my a die cut, and I've cut out 2 white pieces of cardstock, and I will go ahead and take my glitter glue again and stack those together, and then adhere that to my card panel. And then I'll take the silver piece that I embossed earlier and adhere that to the stacked hearts. Once again, using my glitter glue. And then I will attach that to the card. And so for this one, all I did was added a few sentiments and some sequins, and that completes that card. And just here's a quick recap of all 3 of the cards. I just wanted to say thank you for watching the video. If you liked it or found it informative, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you're new to my channel, thanks for visiting. If you like what you see and want to see more, please go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. Also, please be sure to check out everyone else on the Hop. I'll leave a link below where you can get to Monica's page and see all the participants. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll catch you next time.